Hi, I'm Codie Petersen. I'm with Mud Hero Studios. We're making blockchain games on the Zaya platform. So really today is not going to be about a specific game that we've done. I'll talk a little bit about one of the games we made, but mostly it's going to be about some of the problems we had and some of the things that we learned along the way. Not necessarily with any platform or technology, but mostly about our ideas of what blockchain gaming was and what it was going to represent for the community, and how we kind of had to reevaluate some of our thinking around it. So first, this quote, it won't really mean what you think it means right now, but Reid Hoffman, he's the co-founder of LinkedIn, right? Said if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And I think that is kind of one of the major lessons we learned in making Isles of War our first game, and we'll be changing it up quite a bit how we do things. But that is something to keep in mind throughout this entire talk, because it's really around that point that he's made. So when we first decided to get into blockchain gaming, we were actually already making a game. It was going to be a mobile game, but then we decided, well, you know what? We've always wanted to get into blockchain gaming. Maybe we'll just convert the whole game concept and what we had already, and start converting it into a blockchain game. So one of the first things that we looked at was how well our other crypto games do, right? So we looked at CryptoKitties, Ethereum, EtherGoo. There's another one called TronGoo, which is really what got us focused into making it. But essentially, we looked at their retention rates and we said, oh, well, we could get better retention rates than that. We could, if we just make our games, well, if we just make them actual games, right? EtherGoo is an idle game where you like are building goo up and then you just buy other things that make more goo. CryptoKitties, I'm sure most of you know, is just a game where you're selling cats and then you breed the cats together. But our original hypothesis, our business hypothesis, was if we can get a lot higher retention rates and user rates if we one balance the game economies and the mechanics to provide equal footing for all new and old players, right? In Ethereum or in EtherGoo, the concept is the first players who got in, they're going to have like lots of like massive amounts of goo, which are used to compete for the player pot, which had Ethereum in it. So you could players compete over that, and then they get money, right? So that's kind of bad for new players because new players can't get in. Like they're always going to be exponentially behind all the others. So we said, well, if we just balance the economies and some of the mechanics in it, more players will play for a longer period of time, right? And then we decided EtherGoo is just a menu game, so let's provide something a little bit more than that. Some nice graphics, some nice models, and maybe some post-processing effects on our cameras, right? And then lastly, let's provide more content than just trading your cat or just an idle game, essentially. So that was our original thinking. Like we could do a lot better if we just focus on these aspects, right? So that is where Isles of War came in. So we said, okay, let's focus on making this really great. This is a screenshot of the main island. Essentially could be a menu game just like EtherGoo, but each one of the like this is the Warbucks Bank, this is the HQ tile, this is the oil, and these are just the different markets. And so like everything is essentially just a menu button, but we've turned it into a 3D environment that you can go between, and it feels a little bit more immersive than just some pictures on a screen, right? So the gameplay itself, the HQ tile, you go to it, and then you can go look at your islands. You can either defend them, or in this case over here, you can like build these little resources on it. There's oil, metal, concrete, and you can protect these. Everyone can have as many islands as you want. You just have to spend resources on it. and you can protect these islands with these units. So this is bombers. That looks like the medium aircraft, and then some light and medium tanks. And essentially, when a player wants to defend, they just make a squad, and then they put some squads down on these little tiles, right? And then if I want to attack, I make a squad, and then I select the tiles I want to move to and attack them. So that was kind of the game that we made, and we thought it was a lot better in quality and like what the game actually was. We thought it was better than some of the ones out there. But the problem is, we didn't get the retention. Like, we knew we weren't going to get the high numbers because we weren't doing high amounts of going out to the public asking for more players. But even with our small, like 25 people, which we did the beta in, we saw the exact same, like, we put in so much more work, and we saw the exact same retention as Isles or of EtherGoo and of CryptoKitties. And that really made us think, like, what did we get wrong? what was wrong about our thinking, right? Oops. And one of the things we quickly realized was that blockchain games are no different than other games, essentially, when you're talking about retention and when you're talking about keeping players coming in and playing every day, right? They this is some data from the mobile market, right? The mobile gaming market. The top 25% games, so this is day 1 retention, right? Day 7 retention and day 28. Day 1 retention is, do users come back the day after, right? So this is going to be all the players who are like, you know what, I'll give this another try tomorrow. Maybe there's something more interesting. That's more than just click it and see what it's about. This is they're coming back for more. Day 7 is they're still discovering all the content. They're trying to see if this game is going to be worth putting more time into, right? And then day 28 is they find value in your game and they're going to play it on a regular basis, so long as there's new content, new players to interact with, right? So turns out the top 25% of all mobile games get 35%, around 35% or more, right? That's the retention rate.
Auto
So
shutdown
that
initiated.
is kind of an eye opener because we got it was a small
Auto
population,
shutdown
so it's not
canceled.
really
Mic
accurate
on. Mic
statistics.
off.
But we had about 5 out of the 5 out of the 25 players would stay in and play the next day, right? So that we were around the median, right? And day 7, only about 3 players actually played consistently. So that still kept us in the median range, I would say, based off of our small population size. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's the top 25 or anything like that. But the day 28 pretty much dropped to just 1 or sometimes no players, and then we got to restart their cycle again, right? So it really made us think, like, well, we put in all this extra effort, we put in lots of time thinking about all these game mechanics, and we didn't in terms of retaining, which was our goal, keeping those players retained. We didn't do any better than a game that probably took like a week or 3 weeks to make, right? So we came back to the table and we said, this is going to be this is our new hypothesis, that if we adhere to these principles right here, we can probably do pretty well as a blockchain gaming company. So one of the major things is we don't because we spent a year on this game, right? Well, about a year in time, but mostly like 9 months in developing it. So we said we don't want to experiment anymore on what is a good design or what is not a good design. We're just going to stick to what the mobile industry has already pioneered. So targeting the correct demographic, targeting for lifetime optimization of the product, and really focusing on a core loop, which in game design is a thing that you regularly do over and over. So like in an idle game, right? I'm getting money, I build stuff, and then I get more money, then I keep on building stuff. That's a core loop, right? So, and secondly, and I know in the game community, people don't like low quality games. But if they don't like the core loop in the first place, then it's just going to be a waste of time to make it a high quality game, right? So we decided that we're going to optimize for more products, more like a higher quantity of games, rather than focusing so much time on perfecting every aspect of the initial design that we had, because the initial design might be something that no one's interested in the first place. And then another important point that we discovered in some of from what our business coach was talking about, and some of the other industry leaders are talking about, and some of the other game design people who we've been talking to, they're saying in mobile games industry, you want to treat it as a service, not as a product. So I've come from the idea of a desktop game where I buy Call of Duty or whatever, and you just buy it once, right? But what really needs to be done is you're going to be thinking of a game that has a lifetime, like a year's worth, and you need to extract as much as you would pay for in like $50 or $25 or whatnot, but over the lifetime of a year or whatnot. So in order to do that, a gamer is going to get tired of the game after a month or 2 months unless you put new content in it. So we need to treat our games as a service that we're going to be constantly updating. Maybe it's a game that we expand upon, or maybe it's a game that we add new levels or new maps or something. But regardless, it needs to have fresh content every week or every month or however quickly we need to do that, or we can't do that. And then lastly, we can't be making these new things for free, because you don't have a business model if you're not doing that. So every step of the way needs to be monetized in some manner, because crypto players will pay for it. They're paying thousands of dollars for a picture of a cat, essentially. So we know if we monetize the extra parts of our game, like the new maps or the new characters or the whatever the new content is, if we monetize it, we can keep developing the game, because that means we can pay for a team, we can pay for our own bills. If we don't monetize it, then you're just hoping that a game does well, and you'll be making free content for nothing, essentially. So that is our new business hypothesis, that if we do this,
Auto shutdown
that
initiated.
it can pay for it,
Auto shutdown
and more
canceled.
players
Mic
will
on.
be
Mic
retained
off.
longer. So one of the problems, though, is that if we do this, we'll max out eventually on how many players are in the crypto market, right? If it's going to be exactly like the mobile market, that doesn't mean every mobile player plays all of the games, right? They're going to play a couple of games that they like, right? So that's going to be the same from what we've seen. It's going to be the same for any other blockchain game. So we can't really just make a game hoping we're going to get millions of dollars from all of the users on the blockchain, and we're going to have to make a lot. And then even when we do make a lot, there's only going to be a portion of those crypto users that aren't going to even play games. So that means we're going to need to get more players from the mobile market or the desktop market. In order for that to happen, and we've started on some of these things, we're going to need ease of payment, so they're going through the exchanges and having to pay fees and know your customer, like Passport in some cases. That's too much of a hassle for someone who wants to spend 30 minutes a day on a game, right? So we needed to make something, and we have something that our teammate Steve and Owen, both of them have been working on it. And it started out with an easy payment system or an easy sign up system where basically our game does an airdrop after they sign up with email. Our server confirms that they have a valid email, and then we just airdrop them resources. We've decided that we can use that same system, and Steve, he's building out part of the actual crypto part. We can use that same exact system, so other players, for say I have Ethereum or whatnot, or I'm just using PayPal, they can just pay a wallet, and then we just airdrop into crypto, like into a Chai wallet, so they don't have to go through an exchange. The only part that makes us an exchange is if they can pull that money out, which we won't be doing because I don't want to have to deal with all of the laws around know your customer. But if we build that system out, I'm thinking we can get a pretty big, not only more players from Ethereum and Tron or Ripple or whatnot moving into the Zaya network, but also mobile players who are they can just use a credit card or something, right? So the next thing is on that point is the blockchain technology has to be easy to use or easy to participate in. If if it's neither of those, you're still not. You can make it as easy as you want, pay, but they're not actually going to come into the game, right? They're not going to use the blockchain technology the way it's supposed to be used. So one of the things we've been talking about is something that the Zaya team has already thought of in advance, which is the remote game state processors and a really light wallet that can go on mobile. We think it still might need to be a little bit easier, but essentially we're going to go down that road of trying to figure out the easiest way for mobile users to start using um, crypto crypto games. Essentially, maybe they won't have a crypto wallet, but they'll be able to use and play crypto games. And then lastly, just as the few developers in crypto gaming, we're not going to be able to service all of the different types of games and all of the all of the genres that essentially these people are going to want to get in. And there's a lot of technologies that need to be pioneered. So other bigger studios, maybe they're like a studio of 20 or something, or even 10, they need to be able to use blockchain technology without having to train someone from the ground up. I know Ethereum and Tron they use Solidity, right? But you have to have a developer who is specialized in that, which is kind of why we like Zaya because you don't. It's just JSON. If your developer knows JSON, then they're going to know how to develop on Zaya. So I think that's it, maybe not right now because there's a lot of technological developments going on, but I think that's where a lot of developers are going to move to is in either Zaya or a system almost exactly like Zaya, right? Or I suppose engine coin or whatnot. But that's kind of where we're at. And in order to do that, we need to plow through a lot of games at a rapid pace and then support the games that players have found interesting enough to play when it's in a low quality game, right? Which brings me back to the first quote,
Auto
which
shutdown
was,
initiated.
if you're not
Auto
embarrassed by
shutdown
the first
canceled.
version of your
Mic
product, you've
on.
launched too
Mic
late, right?
off.
So this is the first version of LinkedIn in 2003. Wasn't fancy, but it got the job done. And I think the point isn't make crappy products, right? That's obviously not the point. But I think the point is don't spend all of your time trying to prove a business hypothesis, right? We spent 9 months making this thing out when we could, if we were optimizing for amount of games and we made a game a month, we could have had 9 games out, seeing what worked and what didn't work in that time period. So optimizing for quality over trying to find our product market fit, that really it kind of screwed us, but we learned from it. So and we're moving forward now with a faster approach to games. So I think that's really what Reid Hoffman was talking about, and I think that's what the crypto games community in general should be paying attention to. And that's it.
Mic on.
Brilliant, that Codie.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting. You had a lot of good business angles there, and not just sort of tech, which I think is something we didn't so much of in previous calls.
Right. Yeah. Well, I just think as techies, we like the technology, right? It's a cool tech. I remember when Andrew and Daniel they were helping me get set up with the mover example, and the first move that I seen on it, I was all excited because it was my first blockchain move, right? So it's easy to think of it as just a cool tech that everybody's going to adopt, but it's not going to get developed out as fast as we want it to unless we're making lots of money around it, right? So we can't hire the teams we want to hire. We can't hire the people who are going to make the biggest impact And so I think it's important. It might not feel great because you're making products, not pioneering new cool technology or whatnot. But I think it's important that the crypto gaming industry starts thinking of it as a mobile game industry, because these games, you can't just make Call of Duty, put it on the blockchain, right? They have to be like an engaging social game. That's the whole point of the blockchain, right? So, and mobile has run into all the problems we're going to run into. So I think that's a good path to follow is how mobile games industry makes their games and optimizes um, uh, for quantity and content rather than just quality for a few like niche players.
Definitely, I think that makes sense. And I guess also the fact that you partnered to, to some extent with Zaya, I guess also helps too, that you don't have to reinvent the blockchain
Right.
tech because it's already been done.
Yeah, yeah,
As you said, you just need a developer who understands how to make the RPC calls in the
right.
way that Zaya does it, which is basically just JSON.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
I guess the game could, in theory, be in any language, right?
Yeah,
And as long as you can make these calls in the right format, then yeah, it could be any language. Which
yeah,
no, I mean, I think that definitely makes sense, and I can't remember if we touched upon that in the Zaya discussion, but I guess it's another good selling point for them, and yeah,
yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
interesting actually. Yeah, sorry, go
yeah.
for it.
Yeah, and they helped us
Mic
a lot.
off.
They like whenever we had a problem, we went over to them and we asked them like, oh hey, can this get fixed? And they got fixed right off the bat. So and I know they're I don't know if
Mic on.
Soccer Manager Elite is their game or if they're helping somebody else on that one as well. So they're trying to they're helping everybody, right? And Daniel and Constantine, they got a lot of work on them on their hands, but they helped us a lot, and I think that's what's it was simple enough we could do most of it, but there was a couple of concepts that they helped us do, and we were able to get up and developing. I wish we would have done more games rather than just focus on this one huge game, but but yeah, it's nice to have someone there working you through it, because you know most of it, just not the blockchain part, right? Where with Ethereum, I need to go learn Solidity, and then I need to learn all the extra stuff that comes with blockchain, right? But learning a completely different language is like a deal breaker for a company that is using a specific stack, right? So
For sure. Don't know if Andy, if you want to address that point about Soccer Matter Elite. Obviously, I think I
Well,
know the answer, but you can always chime in.
yeah, so yeah, it is like a partnership, and we have been working for a while, and we've developed, or Daniel has like most of the back end, the GSP stuff, although all the match engine and all the game mechanics is from their end, so they've sort of put that in there, and Daniel's uh, added in all the stuff what we need for making it work with Zaya. But yeah, it's like a 50-50 partnership really.
right,
We have been spending a lot of time working on it as well recently.
right, yeah,
I guess the question, I guess, across for Codie and I guess the Zaya team is, given that Codie's kind of basically done some testing of product market fit, and he's saying like, I want to build games, I don't want to be a blockchain dev, and he's saying that, hey, there's a mobile strategy, and the mobile strategy seems to work from looking at the numbers, which, and I think you made a pretty convincing argument about that. Obviously, it might not work for every dev, but I think you made a pretty good argument there. And so now I'm thinking, what's the right kind of split of like research and development on new techniques, new technologies, new algorithms, new methods for improving decentralized games versus just building a product and getting it out. So I'm kind of, yeah, I'm wondering like what's the best split, what's the best way, how do you monetize like the R&D stuff to make sure that you can always be upping your game on the technology side while also making money and actually building games that people want to that games, building games that people would play. So I guess maybe that's kind of covers both Codie and the Xayah guys. If you want to say what you think on that.
Right. Well, I think I've thought for a while that most of Zaya's insight will be best spent on. I don't know if they agree, but I think it will be best spent on doing. I mean, Daniel's literally a doctor, so like I think it's best spent on the technology part. So I would think eventually when there's enough game developers, I know if we were making money, I would definitely buy into it. But if they had kind of like Linux, I think does it. Where they have like partnerships and people can pay in to have oh no, Hyperledger I'm thinking of. But yeah, Hyperledger has a system where you can pay to have a lawyer and a developer and whatever on the group that's deciding the governance of the board. And I think if Zaya were to be making that kind of money from dev, like if we were to pay into it, then we get support from them. We can add new ask for new features in it, and then Zaya could focus on making all of the technologies that are really going to move the gaming industry forward. I think that'd be a good setup, but they might have better ideas. But as it is now, we kind of have to make a couple of the technologies like the payment processing. That's not necessarily a Zaya specific thing, but being able to get other blockchain or crypto holders from like say Ethereum or Ripple and moving that value from those networks into the Zaya network, I think is pretty important because Zaya is kind of small right now, but they haven't really done a whole bunch of stuff that's going to attract a lot of players. So it's reasonable to be that small, but you got to figure out a way other than the exchanges to get players to move in early on into the Zaya network, and that's kind of why we're allowing players to buy our game assets with different currencies. But I don't know. What do you think, Andy? What do you think about the best way that Zaya would go forward as?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's just hard getting people to switch from something like Ethereum when everybody is there. So I was
Right.
sort of like a initial plan was um, build all the tech out, build a couple of good games, and then use those as showcase to show what can be done in blockchain gaming, and then hopefully people will see the light and start moving over.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, we're open to all sort of suggestions and any advice that anyone else wants to bring as well to get more people to the platform. But as for now, yeah, the current plan is just try and get out a couple of games with a lot of users so people can see. Can you still hear me, by the way? Everything's gone silent. You can. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Good.
we can
All
hear
right.
you.
Good. Yeah. But yeah, going back to Codie as well. So basically, you want to focus on more like quick games now, rather than spending a lot of time on one, and that is something that we did discuss as well. But obviously, we've gone really deep foreign now with Tori on that. There's no turning back now. So we've pretty much built like a full MMORPG. But what sort of quick games have you got in mind? I know we did have a quick discussion in Discord a couple of days ago.
Yeah, well, we're gonna focus on we're gonna do a couple of like casino type games.
Yeah.
So Keno is gonna be the first one. That one is really easy. You just choose 20 balls out of 80, and then if the player has any overlap, you pay them out, right?
Yeah.
So I think casinos a good, but we're not gonna do it where like a Tron bet or whatnot where you get actual crypto. So basically, the players would buy casino coins from us, and then they power a machine. So if I'm a user, right, or I'm a slot owner, I'll buy the coins and I'll rent the machine essentially for a virtual Keno machine for like a day or whatever for like $1. And then the players they can buy the chips from the slot owners, and then they play with those chips, and then they can sell the chips to other players or other slot owners.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be making money off of players buying chips from us, but we would be making money from uh, from the slot owners running their own little slot machines
Right.
or the Keno machines or whatnot. So we think that will get a lot of people coming over because a lot of betting websites is I just bet, right? I myself don't like gambling, but if I could run my own little tiny casino, then then
Yeah.
that's something I'd be interested in, right? So those are the first three, but those are just to see if we can attract more users to the network and start generating some money right now. But we do kind of want to build simple games. Like, for example, if we spent a month making like a super slimmed down civilization game or a SimCity game, and then we add upon it every month or something like that, or every couple of weeks, we're just adding content that can be monetized. That's another option we're looking at. But right now we're gonna focus on making a couple of casino games first.
All right. Good. Yeah. One thing we've been discussing as well for like Torion, which is like a slow game. You know, you set it moving. It might take you a couple of days to get to your destination, even in some cases, which is not very fun. Um, but what we wanted to add in was like mini games and things. So, for example, we could have a game channel racing car game where you're racing around the track or something like that. But also another one was there could be some buildings which actually have a casino in. So, there is a possibility, depending on the complexity, to add in like game channel games which affect the state of in Torion. So for example, you could go in a building which has a casino, and you could even be roulette or whatever, and then people can actually bet the actual Torion coins, which actually have utility and value. Whereas, if you just create a casino with some virtual coins, then they don't have any utility apart from gambling more sort of thing. Whereas in Torion itself, those coins have value because people want them to buy stuff and build stuff and things like that. So I mean, obviously the other way works as well because that's how a lot of places do it. Um, but that's something that we was looking at. So I don't know, it's something we could look at is even putting them in there. Obviously, then there's like some legal type issues, but it could be that it's maybe doesn't it can be maybe done in a way that doesn't even affect us with it if it's all completely fully decentralized and stuff. But obviously, that needs some legal
Yeah.
guidance and
Well,
things.
yeah, we did think about the legal part of it. There's a country called Curacao. They have like a really broad gambling license. Costs about $20,000 to $30,000 to get the license,
Right.
but it's only a 2% VAT tax, and you can allow people to white label under you. So that seemed like a really good deal. If we're making enough money that we're going to be looked at, then I suppose we can do something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Mic off.
I think moving because the Kino would actually be a really really light game state processor that could be added into anything. And if there was a way to standardize some of the assets like an NFT essentially or whatnot, then you could maybe possibly do a like maybe someone finds it valuable to put in I don't actually know what the resources are in Torian, but if they say oil from Isles of War, they can put up their Isles of War oil for
Mic
sale
on.
for and trade them for coins or something like that. But I think people would play with virtual coins because there's a lot of foreplay poker games
Yeah.
that like not actual money, but that people sell those coins to other people anyway. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
was kind of our thinking that we can make at least a little bit of revenue, even if it's just a virtual coin system.
Yeah. It seems to work at the moment anyway. So.
And one of the things that because we talked about putting games out like building them from scratch, and then like building them like a little small proof of concept game, right? One of the things that I think might work is Eternal, because they kind of start out like simple graphics and whatnot. Their Discord lately has been pretty pretty active with like new like contests for pixel art and adding new like a new character, I think. But I think that might be one of the games to look at, because they're kind of taking that mobile route where they've built out a basic game, maybe not be fully as developed as they want, but it's playable right now, and they're getting other players to interact with it on a consistent basis. So if our whole business hypothesis is right, then Eternal should do pretty well. And I think that will be one to pay attention to and see kind of kind of how well they do and what kind of problems they run into with adding new content. So I think that will be, I don't know, anyone has any thoughts on what problems they might run into, because I'm not exactly sure how Ethereum will work with adding new content. On Zaya, it's easy. You just make a little tiny an update essentially, and then everybody downloads the new game, and then the content's there, right? But I'm not sure how that works on Ethereum.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was also, I mean, for Eternal, it's still not clear how we plan to do like updates. But actually, I wanted to jump also on the parallel you make on the mobile market and like decentralized game market. And I guess you while there is definitely a parallel, I assume you also believe that the demographic will be different, right? Yeah, because for example,
yeah, definitely. I think the demographic will be different, but so far they've shown to act exactly like mobile players, right? They might not be mobile players, so they might like different types of games, but which is kind of why we want to go through a lot of games just to figure out what types of games they do actually like. But in terms of like their retention and how often they're going to pay, they behave almost exactly like mobile players, at least from the small subsample that we've done. And
did you look at crypto's arrows? Because I think they have data that show. No, it was I forgot which one, but it showed that there is a lot more spender than in traditional mobile games. So you don't need that many players because they buy a lot more. So,
so if they're okay, yeah. Well, we did in that market data in the presentation. It's in gray and you can't see it very well. Underneath the let me see. Yeah, let me present this again.
So basically, if you can just attract whales, then you don't need that many players. If you just have those whale players,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Mic on.
So,
a lot of them are probably speculators as well in crypto, which might go down a little bit, like ICOs.
Right. Yeah. If you look at this gray data right here, underneath the yellow line is the users, right? And then the gray data is the volume, the market volume, right? So it's like it follows almost exactly the same trend. So I don't know if it's necessarily important to optimize for like whaling essentially, but yeah, it's they'll follow the exact same trend.
Yeah, what I mean is that could you compare the ratio? Because what I'm talking is obviously the more users, the more buyers, but the ratio between buyer and user is higher on like crypto games and mobile games.
Yeah, I haven't looked at any of the data, like what the average revenue per paying user is. I know for mobile, it's about $25 across the board, and the majority of your players are paying around like $10 or whatnot.
One other thing related to what all has been said is also like the distribution, not just the average, because the average will hide the fact that your big whale might spend like $1,000 while the average guy might spend $4 or whatever. And I think, I mean, I've seen this across many games, and I don't have the sources to give you right now, but I'm sure you could Google it and find it pretty easy that it does tend to be this kind of Pareto or pseudo Pareto like distribution where 20% of the users will give you 80% of the revenue or whatever, or it could even be even more skewed where it's like 3 or 4% will generate like 80% of the revenue or something like that. So almost like trying to find those core hardcore players to really like push your revenue is probably what you might have to aim for. I mean, obviously it's always easy to look at the successes and say, well, these guys are successful and it's great, so we'll just copy them. Like the RuneScapes, where somehow it just keeps going and it's been almost there for 20 years, and people drop in and out. Sometimes they subscribe, sometimes they don't, but then sometimes they come back. So it's got a strange how retention has worked well from there for them. And I think also like World of Warcraft, but obviously it's difficult to just copy and paste those models and expect it just to work, as much as we would love that.
Right, yeah. I think there might be even more skew in blockchain, because you imagine like who's all the people with the cryptocurrency is going to be the massive traders or the massive miners, right? Everybody else will have bought in to in a crypto, so you'll probably have a few people like you're saying that have like a load of money and they got nothing to do. like, there's literally nothing that they can do with it. So other than trade it, or I'm sure there's like small websites, but you can only buy so many so many computer parts with crypto, right? So yeah, I imagine it might be a bit more skewed in terms of who's paying for what in the crypto gaming market. But if we can attract users from the mobile market and make it easy for them to play these types of games, I think that's really what is gonna make the crypto gaming market. Because if we only ever stay at like 45,000 players for the entire crypto gaming market, then it's not going to be. Well, I'll give you an example. And if anyone in here from Ubisoft, it's not on you. But we joined. We tried to do a little it was kind of like an incubator, but kind of not. Ubisoft was putting out stuff and saying like, oh hey, can we do we want to see if any of these little small game companies can join this incubator and get some we can get some experience from them, and then Ubisoft could give some experience to us, right? So we joined it, but they said our market was too niche and we were too small and didn't have anything to teach them, right? So that it really shows you like none of these big game companies are going to get into the crypto gaming market until there's a huge following, like at least mobile style. Like I suppose maybe you wouldn't have to get that big a mobile industry, but they do need to see that the industry is going to grow over X amount of years so they can capture that growth, right? But if it's only ever going to be crypto enthusiasts, the big game companies who are going to put the most money towards making these new technologies, I don't think they'll adopt it until that growth trend starts popping up for the average user. So I think it will be up to us to make those kind of first technologies that can start moving the players over, and then maybe those whales won't matter so much. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I really wanted to talk about was what the problem, because the game itself it's just a game, right? There's not too much you can talk about in terms of an idle game or whatnot. But I thought it was important that other blockchain game developers don't make the same mistakes we make. But I think the best route is just to move forward with a lot of different games, see what the genres are that the gamers like now, and then start using that money to grow your team, like solidify, like kind of stabilize how the process of building new technologies works. Because right now we're just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and trying to see which technologies are going to make the biggest impact on the blockchain network, right? Or any of the networks. But I think if we stabilize everyone's income, because the exchanges, they are the ones that they have all this money and they should be pioneering these different technologies, but I haven't seen too much effort from them to make stuff easier. They're just worried about gobbling up more more transaction fees, right? But the game developers, I think, are going to be the ones that need to make the technology for the gamers to have ease of use, which in turn, that technology can be used for other people other than the game industry.
I think that's quite interesting idea if you could get game companies to partner with exchanges and could make some games together.
Right, yeah, because it would kind of benefit everybody, especially
Yeah.
like for example, we're using a Coinbase API to kind of like monitor the wallets for that airdrop system. So they could benefit a lot from it. They need to be the back end technology that allows these game companies or whatever companies to make ease of use technologies on top of it. But they're sitting on a lot of capital, and well, at least I assume they're sitting on a lot of capital, but they're not doing too much other than making more exchange technology.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually. Have you tried looking into Binance and its accelerator? Maybe, go that direction, try it out, see what they think.
Oh, no, I didn't know they even had an accelerator actually.
Cartesi have gone that route. I see Cartesi is not on the call this week, but
Yeah, I think they use the Launchpad to do their IEO. I don't think it's not the accelerator. I don't think, or maybe they're in that as well. But they are separate things. They have the Launchpad, accelerator incubator thing, and some other things on there as well, like partnerships.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I think we're probably our team specifically is probably a little bit too small for that. I don't know if we provide a lot of value to them, but
No, the Xi guys could be kind of participating in that too. That would be.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have recently filled in those those forms for Binance as well. But
okay.
yeah, but on the topic of the exchanges and games as well, it's something that we always wanted to do since early Huntercoin as well. Was in those times in the exchanges they had the troll boxes and they were like quite fun actually, I'll have to admit. And you could people were like pumping up prices of coins and stuff, and then yeah, it was kind of a bit fun. But I thought, would it be better if while they just sat there on this exchange watching numbers going up and down, if they could just play Huntercoin in the browser at the same time and talk to people? So that was always something that we thought about, is actually having the games within the in an exchange. So rather than using the technology for payment gateway or whatever, just actually having games on an exchange itself and playing it in a browser, because like you say, they have got all the back end there for it, and they have got a secure system for authentication and things. So it could work where they're playing like a decentralized game in the browser or something.
Yeah, try like 30 exchanges, see what they think. The big ones and the smaller ones need to catch up.
Yeah.
They'll be more keen to develop something like to do something like that. I don't know, maybe decentralized ones as well. That sounds really that really sounds like a good business development idea to try it out for a month and see what happens.
Yeah.
Another angle actually is I can't remember if I shared the Crypto Voxels blog. It's not written by the Crypto Voxels team, but it was Andrew. He's I think I spoke about this before, but a guy called Andrew Steinwald, he wrote this great blog on Crypto Voxels and how they raised the money for Crypto Voxels by doing it kind of bit by bit, stage by stage. So they sold some parcel of land and then again and again. And that, of course, that sounds kind of really obvious or simple or whatever. But the lead developer was just a single guy in the beginning.
Mic off.
And he worked part-time on his game and part-time on something else. And as he sold more and more land, he was able to go full-time, and then he was able to hire another guy and then hire someone else as he was able to sell more and more land to raise money. So doing it iteratively and slowly. Obviously, I can't say that that's not going to work here, but at least it showed a potential way, and I guess it's kind of as old as the hills to kind of work on your passion while also working part time in something else. And I don't know for I guess Daniel was about to say something. I was going to also add in about Eternal. I'm not sure because they're doing also the NFT sales, and I don't know if maybe that's part of their plan to help to monetize and get up to speed by selling something, through phases in order to get up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, it's also part of engaging with the community, like double kind of tool. But I don't think it will. I mean, it's a small scales too, but yeah, the monetization I think is always the tricky part.
Yeah, so one thing I would like to add for the crypto voxels thing that Edward mentioned. I mean, of course, I'm not involved with them in any way, so I don't have any inside information either or something. But I feel that crypto voxels is, of all these virtual world projects that have popped up in the recent time, is the one that by far managed to build the community best. Because on Decentraland, for instance, they sold all this hugely expensive land, and now there is nothing on it because it was just like speculators. And of course, you have a lot of these NFT speculator people types on crypto voxels as well. But I think because of the way how they did it step by step, like Edward explained, it actually like built up the community as well. So you actually have like a lot more content and a lot more active community there happening than in the other projects. I don't know if that was kind of just a side effect of the way they did it because they just wanted to raise money step by step, or maybe it was actually part of the plan. I don't know, but I think that worked pretty well, and it's probably also for that reason a good idea to do a sale in that form rather than just like put sell something for $1 million to speculators and then don't care about it anymore.
Yeah, another thing that is important in that kind of aspect is what we've been hearing from indie studios and like mobile studio execs or whatnot is that what you really want to do is if you're an unproven game company or an unproven concept, that you want to build the concept out with the community, right? Because if you're trying something out, they immediately don't like it, you spend like we did like a couple of months on building something everyone's gonna hate, right? So I think that's probably another reason why that did so well, is because like you're saying, the community grew with it, but the community felt they were invested in it because it was something that they liked from the very beginning, and only the bad ideas were cut out um, most likely almost immediately after the community's input was given. So with a lot of games, I think that will probably be the best way. You build out and then you listen to your top paying customers on what they would like to see, and you just build it from there because you're not going to find product market fit if you build something out all like you take it so like kind of like a movie, right? You build out a whole movie or film a whole movie, and then at the end you turns out you spent $100 million for something that nobody liked, right? So for movies they got to take that risk, but for gamers we don't really have to take that risk, and I don't think we should really. But I suppose some people will still do it. Like bigger games, I know Blankos Party, they've been in for a long while. Haven't seen any. They mentioned that they're going to make the game. They got some investment, and I haven't seen anything from it after that. And there's a couple of games that do that, and I think that's probably the wrong route to